All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, NCMA Certifications, What You Need to Know. My name is Jordan Foster. I am the marketing manager here at NCMA. Thrilled to be on the line with Blake Boynton, who leads NCMA's certification department, and he's going to give us some insight on the process of obtaining any of NCMA's 3 certifications. So a quick point on format before we get started. We will reserve ample time at the end of today's webinar to answer any questions, and so I encourage you to submit at any point during the webinar using the Q&A feature if you have an inquiry about any of the information that Blake shares today. And we'll dive right into that after we get through the content. We will be recording this webinar, so everyone on the line will receive an email with the recording and the slides from today, as well as be able to access that on the certification page on ncmahq.org, as well as on our social media channels. So encourage you to follow us if you don't already, and keep an eye on the website as well as your inbox later today for the recording. So with that, let's dive in. So Blake, you've been with NCMA for over 10 years at this point, and so most of them you've spent in the certification department. Can you give us an idea of today's agenda, and then let's just dive into an overview of the 3 certifications?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Jordan and I for today's webinar. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to interact with all of you and cover all aspects that relate to NCMA certification. So here's what we will be going over today. NCMA's certification programs and the eligibility requirements that go along with them, the benefits of certification within the contract management profession, the application process, as well as all the associated fees, continuing professional education and what's acceptable, study materials and other exam preparatory aids, and of course, sitting for your exam. So first, let's start with our senior and most prestigious credential, the Certified Professional Contract Manager, CPCM. This certification validates that you have met NCMA's highest standards for education, training, and experience, and have demonstrated your knowledge of the contract management competencies in the contract management body of knowledge. You'll see to your right the prerequisites. The first is having a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution. For those of you who obtained your bachelor's from outside the United States, we do require that you have it evaluated by an independent third-party vendor. You'll see at the bottom of the slide. Groups like World Education Services, Credit Eval, Scalaro, InfoCheck USA, or Spantran. Next, you need to have a minimum of 5 years of work experience in the contract management field, and then 120 hours of continuing professional education. Next, we have NCMA's most popular credential. This is the CFCM, the Certified Federal Contract Manager. And this certification validates your education, training, experience, and your knowledge of the Federal Acquisition Regulation, also known as the FAR. As far as the prerequisites are concerned, in this case you need to have a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution, 1 year of work experience in the contract management field, and 80 hours of continuing professional education. Now, we do understand that not all candidates may have a bachelor's degree, and a waiver from the degree requirement is possible. And this is applicable to individuals who have worked in the field for a minimum of 10 years. Finally, we have the Certified Commercial Contract Manager, the CCCM. And this certification validates your education, experience, training, and knowledge on the UCC, also known as the Uniform Commercial Code. You'll notice the prerequisites mirror those of the CFCM, and then again, you need to have a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution, 1 year of work experience in the contract management field, and 80 hours of continuing professional education. Again, you may be waived from the degree requirement if you have 10 years of relevant contract management experience.
Hey, thanks, Blake. That's great info, great overview. Again, I encourage audience members, if you have any questions, please submit them in your Q&A pod. We will address the questions once the presentation is complete, and we'll leave ample time at the end for that. So everyone, you'll see several testimonials on your screen from certificants, NCMA certificants, about the benefits of certification. So I won't read those out to you, but Blake, can you elaborate on some benefits that this might not cover?
Definitely. First, let me talk about the benefits of certification for employers. And the first thing I like to say is that certification provides independent validation of employee or potential employee skills and competency. It is especially important today for outside hires when resume inflation is rampant and when past employers are maybe more reluctant to give meaningful feedback on former employees. Certification improves credibility in the eyes of business partners throughout the supply chain, as well as greater confidence in the competency of your contract professionals when interacting with primes, subs, vendors, and customers regarding contract matters. It helps attract and retain the best and brightest. Moreover, in a tight labor market, support of employee certification efforts is a strong differentiator between employers. As far as benefits of certification for employees, the first I would say is personal satisfaction. Be a professional, not merely one who works in the professional field. And how about peer recognition? Gain respect in the workplace. More career opportunities with regard to hiring and promotions. An increasing number of employers are now stating that CFCM or CPCM certifications are desired, highly desired. Sometimes they're even required on job postings. And finally, many employees are using NCMA certification as a differentiator in promotion to leadership and management positions within the contract management field.
All right, thanks, Blake. And again, very helpful. And let's dive into the meat. So this is what people really want to hear. What is the process to apply?
Well, application payments are made online by the applicant through NCMA's website. So this is the way it works. When submitting your application, you also need to include the supporting documentation to go along with it. Specifically, your resume, so we can verify your work experience, a copy of your undergraduate transcripts, and your 80 or 120 CPE hours, depending on which certification you are applying for. The CPE hours can be certificates of completion, transcripts, letters of validation, etc. So once all that is sent into us, the certification department reviews and approves the application, the candidate's criterion account is created, and a welcome email is sent, and you will have 1 year and 3 attempts from that date to pass your exam. Please keep in mind that the reviewing process can take up to 15 days to complete. Next, we've got the associated costs. You'll see there's member and non-member rates. For the CPCM application, it's $210 for members, $410 for non. For the CFCM and CCCM, it's $150 for members, $350 for non-members. Then there's the examination fees as well. For paper exams, $50 for members and $90 for non-members. Criterion exams is $125 nationally, that's the U.S. and Canada, and $150 internationally. You'll also see the installments for recertification at the bottom of this slide, and we'll leave room for questions with regard to how recertification works at the end of today's webinar. But as far as the fees are concerned, it's $95 for members, $145 for non-members, and if you're delinquent in recertifying, the cost is $300.
All right, and just on the point heading into continuing education, so NCMA offers a wealth of professional development resources, and they're helpful not only if you're looking to obtain a certification, but also for general professional development, and those who want to build their knowledge and skill sets independently of certification. Some of those resources are listed here. There are a number of other options, including our education partners, which can be found on the NCMA website for obtaining those CE credits that will help you either obtain or maintain your certification. And if I could just take a moment too, Blake, I think this is a good moment to reiterate the benefit of joining NCMA for those on the phone who are not members. Prior to beginning your certification journey, membership isn't required to become certified, but it will save you between hundreds and thousands of dollars as you are accruing those continuing education credits and during the application process itself, as Blake just outlined.
Okay, so let's just expand a little bit more on continuing education, because this is a question we get asked quite regularly. There are several avenues in which you can obtain CPE, and that can be done through conferences, webinars, seminars, e-courses, education and development programs at monthly chapter meetings, etc. For those of you who are DOEA or FACC certified, that can be applied toward fulfillment of your CPE requirement. Or maybe you have a law degree or an MBA. That could potentially count as well. There's several avenues to explore, including NCMA's education partners, which Jordan had just referenced, which are all listed on our website. But I would like to make two important points as it relates to continuing professional education. First, CPE that is more than 10 years old will not be considered as fulfillment toward the 80 or 120-hour requirement. While a degree earned over 10 years ago is valid, when used to fulfill a degree requirement, any coursework or continuing education that you wish to have considered for CPE must be less than 10 years old. And secondly, please be sure to check the appendix outline of SIMBOK competencies on page 11 of our CPE guide. That's a downloadable PDF form or booklet that you can get off our website, because that breaks down what would be accepted towards your continuing professional education.
All right, so Blake, pardon me, once someone is approved to sit for his or her exam and have gone through that application process, what resources does NCMA offer to help prepare for the exam?
Well, as you can see, we have several avenues, whether you want to go the route of self-study or in groups. At the top of the list, you will see the CPCM and CFCM online preparatory courses. Now, these are 10-week instructor-led courses that are in a synchronous format, which means you can participate according to your schedule without missing anything. They include weekly reading assignments, discussion board postings, class sessions, and end-of-week practice exams. Not only that, completion of these courses grant you 40 CPE hours. So this is not only a great way to prepare for the exam, but also a way to fulfill the CPE requirement if you lack the necessary hours. Other materials available for purchase via our bookstore are the Contract Management Body of Knowledge, 5th edition, the CFCM Study Guide, 3rd edition. You see the member and non-member prices. We also have online practice exams for the CPCM and CFCM. Right now, 1 for the CFCM practice exam, 6 for the CPCM practice exams, and each consists of 50 multiple choice questions. Now, please be aware that if you do intend to register for the CPCM online preparatory course, that also includes the SIMBOK 5th edition as well as the practice exams. And similarly, if you take the CFCM online preparatory course, you will also receive the CFCM Study Guide 3rd edition and the practice exam. Other exam preparatory aids include questions by SIMBOK competency for the CPCM exam, questions by FARPART for the CFCM, and questions by UCC article for the CCCM. All of these can be found on our website. And then, of course, you'll see other materials available for self-study, which include the Desktop Guide to Basic Contracting Terms, the Desktop Guide to FAR Essentials, and the free UCC site.
All right, so once someone feels ready to take his or her exam, what should they do, and what is the format of that exam?
Well, at this time, NCMA's testing provider is Criterion. Our tests are given via computer at a Criterion host location under the supervision of trained proctors. And right now, there are well over 1,000 Criterion testing centers across the nation and around the world. The exams are offered weekly, with most, but not all, locations being open anywhere from 3 to 6 days a week. And here's the best part. Upon completion of your exam, you will be notified as to whether or not you passed. Additionally, you not only receive your overall score, but your scores by section, so you'll know where your areas of strength and where your areas of weakness were. And then, of course, there are secondary options as well. NCMA offers on-site paper proctored exams at selected national events such as GCMS, Subcon, and World Congress. And lastly, NCMA chapters may host chapter proctored exams by submitting a written request 90 days in advance of the proposed date. They must also provide the exam proctor's contact information and mailing address along with a suitable testing environment. I do have expanded guidelines that I'm more than happy to email to any chapters that are interested in obtaining more information about this testing option. So please, following today's webinar, if you'd like to get more information, shoot me an email and I'd be more than happy to send that your way.
All right. Well, Blake, thank you so much for this run-through, and I know we've gone quickly in the interest of time, but we are receiving a ton of questions from our audience, so let's jump right in. So we have a great question here from Sheila just to kick off. How do you know which certification you should pursue?
Well, that all depends on your background. If you're dealing with, if you work for the federal government and deal with federal contracts, then obviously the CFCM would be the way to go. If it's more commercial related, then I would certainly say go for the Certified Commercial Contracts Manager. And then the CPCM kind of encompasses all of that and is based off the contract body of knowledge. So we are more than happy to also give anybody who wasn't sure if they meet the necessary work experience or think they may be walking the line, send in your resume to us. Send it to certification@ncmahq.org or me directly, and I am more than happy to provide you with a complimentary review to see if either you are eligible or what may be the best path for you to take at that time.
Okay, wonderful. And again, we are recording this webinar, so if you miss an email address or if you want to listen back, we will be sending this out shortly after we conclude today. So Aman is wondering about the CIMBOK, the Contract Management Body of Knowledge that's on which the CPCM is based. What does that include? I mean, what type of content is in there?
Well, I mean, it includes all aspects which involve leadership, management, guiding principles, pre-award, award, post-award, and learn. It's designed to help best prepare you for the CPCM exam itself. And as I had mentioned earlier, this is included with our CPCM online preparatory course over those 10 weeks. So it's a great resource tool to have to help best prepare for the exam itself.
So we've got a couple questions here, one from Christy and one from Jeffrey about higher level degrees. So Christy's question is, can a degree like a JD, does that substitute for any of the work experience required for the CPCM? So let's start there.
As far as work experience, no. If what it could fulfill would be the CPE requirement. JD, law degrees, MBA degrees, very impressive, but that doesn't substitute for actual work experience in the field. You need to work in the field in order to fulfill that requirement. The MBA or JD, depending on what your MBA was in, like if you have a master's in business and it was obtained within the last 10 years, you can apply those courses towards your continuing education. And I'd like to point out, as far as how the CPE equates, 1 credit hour at the master's or JD level equates to 15 CPE. So a 3-credit course would actually be 45 right there. But again, make sure this is all under the assumption that you obtained or you completed your degree within the last 10 years, and it falls under the umbrella of the appendix of the CIMBOK competencies in our CPE guide.
All right, and then Katie's wondering, how often do folks need to recertify once they've passed their exam?
That's a great question. So all designees are required to recertify by December 31st of the 5th year following certification and every 5 years thereafter. For example, those who get certified in 2019, they're due to recertify by 2024, and during that 5-year cycle, you need to accrue a minimum of 60 CPE hours when the time comes that you submit your application in to us.
Okay. Lana is asking if you can hold multiple certifications.
Absolutely, the more the merrier. There's no rule saying you can only hold one, or you're required to have one before you can get another one. We've had situations where individuals will maybe get CFCM certified to start because they don't necessarily have the 5 years of experience, and then they later use that as a springboard to become CPCM certified. And then there's also instances where people go for a senior credential first, and then they like to add to their resume, add to their portfolio additional opportunities, and get the CFCM and the CCCM as well. So there's no limit as to when you can apply. As long as you meet our eligibility requirements, feel free to apply.
All right. Another great question here. How does CPCM compare with FACSI or DWIA?
Well, CPCM, DWIA and FACSI, these are, instituted by the government, and you're required to meet, obviously, work experience requirements and then complete specific coursework. But there's not an exam at the end in order to become DWIA or FACSI level 1, 2, or 3 certified, whereas CPCM certification or CFCM and CCCM for that matter, when you submit your application, this is under that application is then to be approved to sit and take an exam. So first, go through the application process of meeting the necessary work experience, education, and CPE hours. Once approved, you'll then have that 1 year to pass your exam. So that's really what differentiates DWIA and FACSI from our certifications.
Kadeen just submitted a question. So if in the event you fail an exam, do you have to reapply to sit for another exam? And if so, what are the associated costs with that?
This is the way, in the event that a candidate takes their exam and they don't pass, their account locks up for 30 days before they can then schedule their next retake. From the date of approval, you have 1 year and 3 attempts to pass your exam. So if after 3 attempts you are unsuccessful with passing your exam, you would then need to reapply for candidacy. And I'd also like to point out each time that you do have to retest, you are required to pay the $125 examination fee if you're testing for the U.S. and Canada, or $150 if you're testing internationally.
All right, and let's see. Here, another great one. My degree was earned under my maiden name. Is there any additional backup that we need to show that this is the same person?
If you give us a marriage license, that would work. Just validation that proves, in fact, you are who you say you are when the time comes that you submit your application.
Okay, and let's see. Do you mind going back over, so advanced degrees, we have a lot of questions coming in about this. So advanced degrees like MBA, JD, et cetera, so they do not qualify for work experience. They're not a substitute for work experience, but they do help obtain CE credits. That's
correct.
Yeah.
So yes, MBA and JD is never a substitute for work experience, but it can be applied towards continuing professional education within that 10-year window, and as long as it falls under acceptable topics and subjects of our CPE guide.
Okay. How frequently are the Proctored exams scheduled?
Well, that is all contingent on chapters. Chapters, as I had mentioned earlier, put in requests 90 days in advance to host paper proctored exams. And then, of course, other paper proctored exams, as I had mentioned earlier, are at NCMA-sponsored events, which would be our conferences. So as far as frequency, for NCMA itself, it would be at our conferences. For chapters, that's how often a chapter opts to take part in that testing opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then Christy is asking if the CE hours must be done through NCMA, or can they be from outside organizations? They absolutely can, and there is. I'll go back to that slide here just so you can see. But there are a number of ways to obtain CE credits.
Yes.
So
you're not required to obtain CPE through NCMA or NCMA education partners. You can use other avenues if you choose to do so. It just, again, needs to fall under acceptable topics as it relates to CPE.
Okay. So can you go back over, actually, here, let's start with this one. What if I need to reschedule my exam? What's the process there?
The beauty of this is once you are given your login information to your Criterion account, you can log in and out as many times as you see fit. Now, there's a disclaimer you have to check off when the time comes that you have selected the date, time, and location as to when you want to test, and that's that if you wish to reschedule, you need to do it 72 hours prior to the exam. If it's done within that 72-hour window, there is a $100 rescheduling fee associated with it, so be mindful of that. You can always push out your exam to another date if you just aren't ready, if something comes up. We understand that completely, but make sure you stay outside of that 72-hour window, because the last thing you want to do is have to be stuck with an additional $100 sit fee.
Still on the continuing ed train, is there any type of waiver for continuing education hours, and if so, how would that be obtained?
Not at this time. The hours must be obtained prior to submission of your application, and we're more than happy to also, just as we give resumes complimentary reviews to ensure that you meet the necessary work experience, if there are CPE errors that you're just not sure may or may not be applicable, send those in to us, and we're more than happy to take a look at them for you.
All right, great. What is the best book to use for the CPC exam to prepare?
That would be the Contract Management Body of Knowledge, hands down, 5th edition.
All right, great. Let's see. Okay, can you spend some time going over the actual format of the exam?
Yes, of course. So for the CPCM, what we have is it's a test that consists of 180 multiple choice questions along with scenario-based questions that cover all aspects of contract management. And I had mentioned this earlier, but I'd like to reiterate what they are. That's leadership, management, guiding principles, pre-award, award, post-award, and learn. The passing score is a 70% or higher, and you have 4 hours to complete your exam. For the CFCM and CCCM, both tests consist of 150 multiple choice questions. The passing score is a 70% or higher, and again, you have 4 hours to complete your test.
All right, and are these certifications international, like the CSCP, or are they just domestic? How does that work? That
usually depends on the organizations themselves making the call. I know that I can certainly say that our certifications are recognized nationally, but we do have plenty of people out in the Middle East that look to get their CCCM designations. The one thing I always make sure that they're aware of is that the UCC exam, the exam itself is based off the American version of the UCC, which may be separate from what they're looking at.
So for those who are pursuing multiple certifications or who are recertifying but are looking at the multiple certification track, can you use your CE hours for multiple certifications, or do you have to obtain new ones for each one?
Oh, you can definitely apply them towards the same designation as long as they fall within that 10-year window. So you may have an instance where somebody, for example, applies for the CFCM this year, and then 2 years later decides they want to apply for the CPCM. Those 80 hours can be applied as long as they still fall within that 10-year window. However, there may be 20 hours that are then outside of that 10-year window, which means now you've got 60, and you'd still have to fulfill the remaining 60 in order to fulfill the 120 CPE hour requirement. But they can be applied towards both. And the same holds true for recertification. If you've got multiple designations, let's say you're both CPCM and CFCM certified, you're required to accrue a total of 60 hours for both designations. It's not 60 for one and 60 for the other. It's 60 for both. And your recert date links up so that you're due to recertify at the same time. In other words, if you get certified in 2019 as a CFCM, your recertification due date is 2024. If you become CPCM certified in 2020, your recertification due date is 2025. But because of obtaining that second designation, your CFCM recert date actually pushes out to link up with your CPCM recertification due date. So both are due at the same time, and again, the 60 hours would apply towards both.
Okay. Is submitting a copy of a diploma or a degree acceptable in lieu of transcripts, or does it have to be transcript?
It does need to be transcript, although we are lenient when it comes to, we understand sometimes getting official copies can be difficult, so we do accept unofficial as well. But we do need transcripts to go with the application when you are applying.
All right, and are the tests open book?
No, the tests are not at this time. The tests are not open book.
Okay, let's see. Still a number of questions coming in, and we've just got about a minute and a half left. So let's do one more. Do undergraduate course credits from relevant courses count towards continuing education?
No, undergraduate coursework is not applicable towards continuing education. If however, you're fulfilling your undergraduate degree and you take courses outside of the undergraduate requirements, those can be applied, again, if they were done within the last 10 years.
Okay, so in the interest of time, we are coming right up on 12:30, so I do want to thank everyone on the line for spending a few minutes with us. You can find Blake or myself at the contact info that is listed on the screen. Blake is our certification guru, and if you have any questions about membership or joining NCMA, feel free to reach out to me. Blake, any parting thoughts before we sign off?
I do. I just one last thing I'd like all of you to remember, and that is, what certification is and what certification is not. Now, remember, certification is not a substitute for performance, for experience, or for teamwork. Certification is not a guarantee for success, and most importantly, it is not a ticket into the contract management profession. So what is certification? Well, certification validates your knowledge of contract management, and it incentivizes you to keep current within the field. And more importantly, it brings you one step closer to professional perfection. Always remember this: education is an indicator of academic strength, while certification is an indicator of professional strength.
All right, wonderful. Well, again, thank you, everyone. And if we did not get to your question, we can definitely answer that offline. Again, reach out to Blake or myself, and we will be sending the recording of this webinar as well as the slides, and I'm going to include that CPE guide as well, just to make sure that everyone has the information they need. So keep an eye out for that today. Thank you all, and look forward to chatting with you soon.